Welcome to Value Props, my friends. I have Joe here.
Hey, Jay, excited to be here.
Joe is a now newly minted instrument-rated pilot. All right, we're going to use our trusty checklist. Flight controls. Left aileron up, left aileron down, right aileron up, right aileron down, elevator up, and elevator down. Prop cycle. So we're looking for 2200 up here. There we go. Right engine looks good. So up on the manifold, down on the RPM, down on the oil pressure. Up, down, down. Good. Up, down, down. Up, down, down. Beautiful. All right. And we are clear on departure. Get down the runway. Make sure we stay on center line. And up we go. Kicking it off, Joe. Tell me a little bit about your sales career and how you got into sales and where that started.
Yeah. I like to think I was sort of tricked into it by applying for this job called International Management Trainee, which was not international, although the company was. There wasn't really much management, though that happened pretty quickly.
Yeah, that was pretty fast.
I was doing a lot of training. And all of a sudden, I got into the sales role, cold calling, and found out that I really loved the thrill of winning deals.
So we met during this time. I had started in Philadelphia as an international management trainee. This is the trainee that really got me. I was
You were excited for the training?
Oh man, it was definitely a different time, but I think we're really lucky and fortunate because we talked about this last time. Sales was not looked at as this job. It was not glorious for us, but it has since turned into that, right?
Yeah, sales before was the used car salesperson, whereas sales now is a profession, and sales now is about helping people come to a conclusion that actually is best for them, and really being a partner and an advisor.
All right, so you did this gig, I'll say, in the corp dev finance for a little while. Like, tell me a little bit about that. Were you out buying companies, hiring a team?
So hiring a team was first. At Melwood, I got to hire my boss twice. First, when I hired the CTO when I was running the R&D team. And then second, when I got to hire our head of corporate venture capital, a VP under him, and then 5 analysts we hired from some pretty good schools out west. And then we started doing partnerships. And the end goal was always that partnership was going to lead to an acquisition.
That kind of turned into, you went back into sales, though. Was that right?
Yeah, right before I left Meltwater, I realized that I think my run had kind of tired out. It had been about 5 years. I was ready to move on and do something different, something entrepreneurial.
Right.
I was also approaching 30, which felt like the end of my life. So I needed to go and live abroad. And I decided that I was going to move somewhere. Israel ended up being at the top of the list for the tech ecosystem and the ease of me moving there. And I picked up and moved to Tel Aviv in 2010.
Which, honestly, looking back at it, makes a lot of sense in that you saw Meltwater bring, like, international tech over. Israel, huge technology hub. Yeah. I totally understand.
Israel was known as, and still is, the startup nation. Yeah. And so I had no doubts that I would go there and find some sort of interesting role, potentially helping an Israeli company go to market in the U.S., provide a business development or sales skill set. And that was really what I went over there looking for. It turns out my path would be very different. I met up with someone that I'd interviewed for the corporate venture role who was coming out of Babson, a guy named Tomer, an amazing entrepreneur, who decided that he wanted to move back to Israel. We had a coffee one day and figured out we could actually build a company together. I learned a lot of lessons from this, but we sat down and basically put together our copy and paste model for how we would build up a sales distribution channel like Meltwater did, low price point, short sales cycle, most sales done over the phone, pretty industry agnostic, being able to sell across different departments, and started combing the market for technologies that would fit that, and then we would build a business around it.
Yeah, that's, phenomenal idea. It's a great idea. So tell me a little bit how that went.
It went really well and exciting the first 6 months when we were building the business with the clear confidence that within 2 years we were going to be a $100 million business, there were going to be no hiccups, and everything was going to go smoothly. I think you can tell a little bit from my tone and your smile that that's not how it went. But we ended up partnering with a couple of guys who had an off-the-shelf piece of technology that wasn't ported to SaaS yet. And we basically met with them and decided we would do a joint venture and then created the most complex corporate structure you could ever imagine. It was a big waste of our early seed capital that we had raised from friends and family. So we hit the market, we tried to sell, and we realized we had skipped a step, which is product market fit. And trying to understand and validate some of the nuances we would need to tweak. So within a couple of months, I ended up moving from Israel back to Miami, working with one of our co-founder, Michael Clues, to figure out how to sell this thing. Yeah. What's the price point? What are we supposed to do? Who are we talking to? How are we positioning it? And the lesson really is like focus on the sales first. Focus on the business. Yeah.
All the other things, customer conversations, the industry, your value prop, unique differentiator. We talk a lot about this because I'm doing my second startup, and in a lot of ways they say, oh, well, startups, you're taking one and you're just doing the same thing, and it's not at all, right?
No copy paste.
So different from each other. And sure, there's overlap, like how to get the business up and running, the entity, maybe people that you work with. Yep. But the reason we do it is because it's a unique challenge. Yep. It's a unique problem that we're trying to solve and fix. So the ClearCI, you're probably like, oh, I'm kind of done with this startup thing for a while.
Yeah, I think, more importantly, I'd also put in, obviously, blood, sweat, and tears, but a lot of cash, basically all of my cash. So it was time to rebuild the war chest. And through the Meltwater network, I was able to pretty quickly take on a really senior sales role over at Adobe, which has
great
amazing culture,
great company,
amazing products, great brand, and a really great sales organization.
You went into leadership a little bit at Adobe, right? Did you manage a team?
Yeah, so I was running a team, and it was an interesting setup with the overlay and dotted line reporting, where I basically had all the responsibility for, 8 people's quotas, but none of the actual authority. They didn't directly report to me. So it was really interesting to be able to try to navigate that and figure out how we can hit an $8 million annual number and work together as a team and create the right culture where they could work for me or they could work with someone else. They had 2 people they're typically attached to. How did I incentivize and excite them and motivate them to work with me more so that we could be successful together?
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the evolution at the end of Adobe and what made you jump into something else.
I got approached by something else through a recruiter, which is a company called Gavin DeBecker, and they provide executive protection services for the world's wealthiest and most influential people. Yeah. And it was a really interesting tie-in with my early military background that I could get a little bit into that security space, and I'd done all before sales. Focused on business development. So the idea was to grow the business into the large enterprises where typically these really successful, wealthy people also run really large companies. And so we can help them with some other services in those companies. And I was just attracted by the prospect of working for a really old company that was doing something like a startup inside of it. So 45-year-old company trying to create a new business model. And that was really exciting. So I took on a VP of business development role there where we were going to create this entire function and build out some growth. And we had some good success over about a year and a half. But at the end of it, I realized that I was just missing technology more than anything.
You started flying at some point during this time, and really interested how you got the aviation bug, but like, how did this mix into your business world? Because for me, it's like they're very tied into, obviously, very tied into. Yeah. But like, how did that happen for you?
Well, when I had I think it was our second or third office for ClearCI, third office in Fort Lauderdale, it was overlooking a small airport called Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport. And I had a book that I bought when I was 17 and had been carrying around every move that I made called Your Pilot's License. And I neither had the money or the time throughout all those years to do my license. So I just said, I'll do it in the future at some point.
You always had the passion, I'm guessing.
Always had the passion.
Yeah,
the third part of it.
Things. Yeah,
the third part of it I always had. So finally sitting there staring at all these GA aircraft taking off every day, I said, I'm just going to do it now. I had neither the money nor the time, but it was time to do it. So I put a lot of credit card debt on personally and learned how to fly. And it was amazing. I spent about 3 years flying. And then again, life and time commitments, specifically with Adobe traveling every week for work. Flying fell off for a few years until I got back into it this year.
Tell me, like how did you go from your private and you're like, okay, I got to step up and get my instrument?
I think the obvious thing was that because I had taken a little break from flying, I wanted to get some training before I was starting to fly again. And I'd always wanted to do my instrument because I think instrument flying makes you a much safer pilot in terms of the accuracy, the proficiency, and then all of the things that come along with it. It's such an intellectual challenge, and it's so much safer in terms of talking to air traffic control and having specific roads in the sky that you're following, the ability if you need to go through a weather situation that you can. So it was just obvious to me to jump right into the training for that. And also, was right next to my house again. So I had moved. I'm now a mile and a half away from an airport called Lantana that has a great flight school, Palm Beach flight training.
Cool. So aviation, you have your instrument. So what's next on your bucket list in aviation?
So definitely, I mean, I've got a lot of bucket list things. I want to get a seaplane rating at some point. And then the other thing, I definitely want to get my multi-engine at some point, but that'll be whenever I end up buying a plane, because that'll make sense. You can't really rent too many multis. But, I think what's interesting is I'm going to do a lot more instrument flying now. And one of the things I love about it, the radio has always been really easy for me. I think I had some military training, didn't have to learn the alphabet, comfortable talking and doing things at the same time. But what I noticed, talk about tie-ins between aviation and sales, instrument flying, talking to air traffic control requires a real good command of language and your voice and cadence and specific words and really intentionality. So I've actually been working on a book about using your voice in sales. And one of the things that hit me when I was doing my instrument training was just how important it is to pay attention to all those things while you're doing sales. You can pick up a lot in learning how to command your voice. So I'm exploring and doing a lot of research around this to understand how can you actually be more effective as a sales professional by mastering the one tool you typically have, which is your voice.
With this, you're mastering your voice. What are some of the big topics that you're thinking about for this?
So there's really good coaching that we do by recording the calls and giving coaching and feedback. Now, the things that I notice most are too much talking, not enough listening. As sales professionals, we often have so much excitement about what we're selling, we want to just talk about it. Pitch, and understanding not only our own pitch, but our customer's pitch. Right. When they have something that's raised at the end of a statement that reflects some level of uncertainty. When they have something that's declining at the end of a statement that reflects some level of certainty. So if you're listening for these little clues in your conversations, you can understand where you need to go next.
Everyone loves talking about themselves, so it's really easy to fall back on that. So you went into security. I'm going to guess that it wasn't quite the startup within a startup fast-paced.
It wasn't, and more than that, it's just the industry. I love the tech industry because things change so quickly. You can get things done. You can adjust. You can pivot. The word pivot doesn't exist in most businesses. So after about a year and a half, 2019, I started looking around. I had connected with a woman at a conference and heard about this company, DataMinr, that was really the intersection of all the things that I'd done in my career in terms of publicly available information from Meltwater and ClearCI, the security space, military, what I was doing at Gavin DeBecker, and then all of the aspects of a later stage growth tech company that I really wanted to get into, where we had product market fit, and it was about how to scale that organization and make it successful. So I came in as an individual contributor role, had some really early successes in the first 9 months, and then moved into management and built up a new team of account executives focused on our strategic enterprise sales.
First off, cybersecurity, fantastic space. Lots and lots of companies, for sure, a lot of noise. But the truth is, it's like over the last 5 years, it's just been like this boiling point that is, the fact of the matter is, every single part of your business has to have some level of security tied to it.
And it's if you go back to the fundamental question of, will my business be successful? The question you ask before that is usually, am I actually solving a problem? Yeah. And so clearly there's a problem in this space that can be solved a myriad of ways.
I'm going to take it off autopilot.
Cool. That's good.
All right, tell me about DataMinr.
The DataMinr helps solve the problem of real-time information. Actually knowing about things the moment they happen, whether that's physical security that you need or your cybersecurity. If you have to wait minutes, hours, or even days after a threat appears, you're already behind the 8 ball. You're reacting instead of being proactive. We solved that problem.
Oh, we just went up 1,000 feet.
Love the climb rate on this.
Yeah, that was at 1,500 feet. That was fantastic.
It's awesome.
That's cool. That, my friends, was value props.